Recently, I asked an AI program how many pro-life channels there were on YouTube. It suggested there were dozens, maybe even hundreds, and then listed the top 5. 4 of the top 5 were in the USA, but one of them, this channel, SPUCTV, was also there. I was about to follow up by asking how much pro-life content there was on the BBC, when I realised I already knew the answer to that question. It's 0. So, is it a surprise that the BBC has just been overtaken by YouTube, with more people watching the video platform than watch the BBC? Of course not. And for the BBC, it's only going to get much worse. I'm Peter Kearney, and this is my Viewpoint. In 2019, following the launch of the new BBC Scotland channel, costing around £32 million, the broadcaster's Audience Research Board data showed that over 20 BBC programmes recorded 0 viewers in their consolidated figures. Now, this doesn't actually mean 0, as in no one watched. It means that the figures were so small, in the low thousands, that they're basically rounded down to 0. Among those whose ratings fell through the floor were several editions of The 7, BBC Scotland's flagship evening news bulletin, the discussion show The Collective, and a new music programme called Tune. So, the BBC can, and does, make content that's so terrible no one watches it. But we all still have to pay for it through the licence fee, which currently raises around about £3.8 billion a year. That's what economists would describe as a lot of money. But while it's hard to avoid paying for the BBC, it's not hard to avoid watching it. And more people are deciding to do exactly that. A recent report in The Times showed that more people watch the video platform YouTube than the UK's largest broadcaster. 2 decades ago, the BBC comfortably dominated the most watched shows of the year. Its programmes accounted for half of the top 100 most watched shows and often had audiences over 10 million for popular programmes. Now, YouTube has overtaken the BBC for short-term viewers. According to the data gathered by the independent ratings body BARB, the number of people watching YouTube for at least 3 consecutive minutes per month has consistently been higher than the figure for the BBC since it started measuring it last October. BARB found that YouTube reached 51.9 million people in December of 2025, ahead of the 50.9 million who tuned in to the BBC. It's a pivotal moment in viewing history, and a dreadful one for the BBC. The former BBC producer, Stephen D. Wright, told The Times the figures were a tragedy. He said, "The tipping point is here, and we are now living in a world dominated by YouTube and the streamers. The TV audience has abandoned the discipline of scheduled TV, and on-demand viewing has killed any loyalty. Who wants to wait when you can click your phone? That audience is slowly dying off, and it's a tragedy." But is it really a tragedy? Aren't the people who complain about the demise of the BBC a bit like the Luddites who smashed up the steam-driven machinery of the Industrial Revolution, or the blacksmiths who complained when the invention of the car put them out of business? If something newer, better, and fairer comes along, why shouldn't we use it? And fairer really is the point. Over the last 20 years, BBC News have covered SPUC comments or statements on very few occasions. We've released dozens and dozens of press releases in that time, but BBC News mentions us on average once per year. By contrast, BPAS and Marie Stopes International, or MSI, the UK's 2 largest abortion providers, are routinely quoted or featured in stories about abortion law, services, statistics, prosecutions, buffer zones, and policy changes. Over the last 20 years, BBC News have covered their comments or statements on many occasions. On average, they referenced about 10 times per year. That's a bit of a contrast, isn't it? The organisations that defend abortion get around 10 times more news coverage from the BBC than the organisation that wants to end abortion. Is that fair? Is it reasonable? Is that what we pay our licence fee for? Of course not. It's a travesty of unfairness, bias, distortion and misinformation, something the BBC is so keen to call others out for. Unlike the superannuated broadcasters bemoaning the BBC's decline, we should really be celebrating it, since BBC decline means an end to the lies, distortion and misinformation they brought to reports on every single life issue that there is. In 2024, YouTube overtook ITV to become the second most watched broadcaster, accounting for around 19% of video watched, according to Ofcom. Its progress has been boosted by older adults turning to the digital platform as it began to mirror traditional TV more closely, with a growing number of long-form interviews and documentaries. Almost 2/3 of trending YouTube material is estimated to be of that sort, and 41% of in-home viewing now takes place on a TV set. In its Global Culture and Trends 2025 report, published last month, YouTube said that accusations that it was exacerbating the dwindling of attention spans were misplaced. They said, quote, "While focus is on the undeniable growth of short-form video, something interesting has been happening with long-form, whose content's popularity has been thriving too. The endurance of long-form is not just counter to the prevalent narrative about the direction of video creation and consumption, it's also a cultural mandate. Viewers are seeking more profound and more insightful content, perhaps precisely in reaction to the feeling of surface-level information. Authenticity, depth and trust will always demand and receive the audience's full attention. And the fact that you are watching this tends to bear that out. Here at SPUCTV, we produce long-form content, and with your support, we plan to do much more of that in future. When YouTube claim that viewers are seeking more profound and more insightful content, we know that's true. Our content, which, as we always remind you, brings to light what others hide, is exactly what the BBC should be producing, but they don't and they won't. We've joined thousands of organisations and individuals who've given up waiting for the BBC to do the right thing, to do their job, to fulfil their legal remit of balance and rigour. We've had enough of their relentless pro-abortion propaganda and their anti-life bias, and we've chosen to invest in the people and the technology needed to bring you the truth on the stories you want to hear but can't find anywhere else. Certainly not on the BBC. The fact that we're ranked as one of the top 5 pro-life content producers in the world on the YouTube platform is something we're very proud of. And we're also very grateful to you, our viewers, for the support you've given to get us there. It's worth remembering that adults aged 16 to 24 now watch just 17 minutes of live television per day, with less than half tuning in to broadcast television each week. Currently, the BBC's share of all in-home video viewing, live TV, iPlayer and recorded playback is around 20% of overall audiences. But among younger audiences, the 16 to 34 age group, the BBC's share is about half that figure, at round about 9%, and that's including the iPlayer. Put another way, around 90% of young people have never and will never watch anything from the BBC. And who can blame them?